Welcome to the Hawkeye Sidekick podcast. And you're very welcome back to the Hawkeye Sidekick Hurling podcast with your host Mark Kennedy, joined this week by Kieran Collins. Kieran, how are things?
Very good, Mark. And yourself?
Great. Opening weekend of the league. A few results to ponder over. I suppose we'll review 1A more so than 1B. We'll also look at 2A, some marquee results, particularly down in Tralee. Fitzgibbon Cup quarterfinals last night, so we'll run the rule over the semi-finalists next week. The schools, we had provincial finals in Munster, Connacht and Leinster. I suppose, Kieran, we'll kick off first with 1A and 1B from, let's say, a 1A perspective, some very competitive games. I suppose we want to start off at Nolan Park, Kilkenny and Wexford. I suppose get your thoughts on it, Kieran.
Yeah, I suppose like all the games that took place the weekend, there was a stiff breeze. Kilkenny had that breeze in the first half, and I suppose there was a half that it failed to excite really. There was only, I think Kilkenny had three points in play. I think Wexford the same had 3 points in play each in the first half. I suppose at half time, it's not what you expect from the two teams. Usually a rip roaring a battle, and it really kicked into that way in the second half. A really good game. And I suppose look for Wexford to come back, I suppose, on two occasions after the two Kilkenny goals, two penalties. I suppose to not give up the fight and to keep fighting at the end. To go down, heading into injury time, and to get the goal late on to level it up. I suppose it's a good sign of a young team. I suppose the will to battle on, and I suppose not to pack it up and give in. They were probably lucky to come away with a draw in the end. I think Billy Drennan probably be kicking himself all week that he missed probably a score but free at the death to win it. But I suppose look, that wind, if you probably wouldn't see it on the camera, like it was a fairly stiff breeze. And to be fair, Lee Chin missed one in a similar position early in the first half. So I think the wind was a huge factor in the game, and especially for Drennan's late free. But I suppose some cameo for him to come on scoring 2-3. We all talked a little bit about Billy Drennan last year, and I think maybe what he maybe lacks a little bit. I suppose in open play, he reminds me of Evan Nyland. He's deadly accurate on the frees. Maybe not as influential around the field yet. He's a young guy still he's got best years ahead of him. But that's some contribution on his first day out in the league this year. 2-3 from play. I think for Wexford, there's I suppose over the last couple of years we've all been, everyone has talked about the potential lack of youth coming through, and an aging team. And I think to be fair to Keith Rossler, he's given anyone who deserves a trial or a chance has got it. Anyone who's, and they've got a fair shot. Everyone's had a couple of games. He's stuck with a younger team on Sunday gone. And I think it was possibly Kilkenny were stronger on paper. I think the way they lined out. Of that starting Wexford team, how many will start in championship? I suppose there's a lot of games to come before then, but I think it was a young, inexperienced team for most part, and a lot of these younger guys really impressed. I think Conor Foley, full back, I think he's started to make the national headlines a little bit now, and he's a name on people's lips the last 2 weeks especially. Stellar performance, full back, getting up for 2 points. Really solid, young guy. I suppose he came up with Keith Rossler underage. James Byrne as well of Askamore, another good performance. I probably think he's probably better suited in the half forward line than being in a corner forward, especially playing in a two-man full forward line. But just the work rate. Corey Byrne Dunbar as well. Midfield really, it's a really good game. And Kevin Foley, I think a lot of lads would have wrote Kevin Foley off last year, but I think he's come back. He's fitter. He's just a real positive guy, and I think the last few games he's just been really, really impressive. And while he might not be scoring, I think it's his assist play and the scores. He's involved in a lot that goes on. And I think the one stat for me that stood out was that Wexford outscored Kilkenny 2-12 to 7 points from play. So in Nolan Park, first weekend of the league under new management, I think you can't but be happy to get the result there in the day.
No, I think it really kind of sets the tone again, Kieran, doesn't it? I mean, the momentum from the Walsh Cup has continued into the league, and I mean, that's a pretty marquee result, I think, for Keith Rossiter, the management staff, and the players. I mean, as you say, Rossiter and the management have given an awful lot of opportunities to an awful lot of players. stake their claim. And I mean, everyone seems to be roaming in the right direction. And
yeah, I mean, it's I suppose it's plain to see. I suppose the work rate they're bringing, and it's these kind of words that we're hearing all the time now: work rate and physicality, and I suppose that the possessions and tackle counts, it's all looked at week on week. But I suppose it's the significant difference from last year of a Wexford team to this year. I suppose you can see is the work rate. And I suppose with a young team, sometimes it's hard to know what to expect. Like Kilkenny, it's a Lions Den really going to Nolan Park, and it's hard to get a result there. But I think there's just so many positives. Look, there's some tough days ahead. Look, Offaly and Saturday will be no different than going into, obviously Clare, Cork and Waterford towards the end of the league. So they'll bring different challenges. But I think just the spread of players, I think even for Lee Chin, who hadn't scored from play. So I think like in years gone by, Wexford have been really reliant on maybe like Lee Chin and Roy O'Connor to produce the goods. You're looking at like Keane Byrne coming in, getting 1-1, pivotal goal at the end. But every day he has come on, he's contributed and getting that, 1-3 off the bench between himself and Tucker Kinsella, that wasn't there last year or the year before. And we all know it's a 23-man game, and the guys coming on, you're expected to produce scores to see out the game. And look, it's a good start to the league. I suppose there's tougher games ahead, but you take a draw in Nolan Park any day.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Kieran. No, I think it's a fabulous setup for Wexford for the coming season. I suppose from a Kilkenny perspective here, Kieran, I think you've mentioned it in terms of Drennan, but anyone else really impressed you on the day for Kilkenny?
Yeah, I thought King Kenny was very good. In the middle, just breaking balls and puckouts. I think he caused a lot of trouble for a huge part, especially the first half. Cody was really, really good in the first half. Seemed to get a little bit, a good bit of freedom. I think then Wexford made a change early second half for Shane Reck came on. And he kind of balanced each other out really. Cody was kind of taken out of the game at that stage. I think just for Drennan impressed me when he came on. I suppose looking at the Kilkenny team, I said it was stronger on paper. Like they have a lot of players to come back in, even the Loughlin Gales lads, Paddy Deegan, Hugh Lawler, Mikey Butler. The difference they're going to make that team. I think Kilkenny have no issue at the back. I suppose if anyone was looking for ways of beating Kilkenny, you're kind of looking at the forwards and maybe the inconsistency of some of them. We've highlighted these things last year. Billy Ryan, Massey Keown, but just Kilkenny, I think just they bring that work rate, that attitude every day they play. I think that gets them 50% of the way there, the way they play and the attitude they have.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I know Derek Ting was at pains to call out the positives during the game. I think the closing stages, I think Kieran would have been disappointed with just how the manner of Wexford coming back in, but acknowledged started the campaign, things to work on, which is exactly where teams should be in February. I suppose, Kieran, we could move on to Cusack Park Ennis. It was a televised game on Tina G, Clare Cork. I know Rory's not with us tonight, but Rory had trepidations about Clare playing pretty much a well-loaded Cork side. But to be fair to Clare, the squad depth really impressed here in a 125-219 win with Shane Amori really coming to the fore in that second half, Kieran.
Absolutely, yeah. I suppose just looking at the game from start to finish, Clare, I think we're probably in control for the best part of that first half. They went 9-3 ahead. I know they had the win behind them, but I think the two Cork goals probably came against run of play. And maybe it has highlighted, I think it's been an issue that has been there in past years is, this, I suppose, defensive frailties, which allow these goals to happen. I suppose they were well taken goals in the end, but, Clare does seem to be non-organised back there, especially Tommy O'Connor's one, But I suppose it got Cork back into the game, 14 points, 2-7 at half time. I think Cork would have been happy, considering they're going to be playing with that win. But the third quarter, the championship quarters are starting to call it now. Clare were really impressive. They scored 7 out of the first 8 points, in that first quarter, to win to 21-28 lead, really, really impressive. And, I think Cork would have been happy at half time, even though they hadn't been playing well. I think going in, the position they were going in with the win, and I think I suppose it's a thing of Cork teams we've probably looked at the last year or two where they do fall asleep and they do go to games for chunks of a game, and it's exactly what happened again Sunday, where that third quarter they just weren't in it. Okay, they came with a fight back, but I think it was Shane More's goal. I had it back to 2 points, I think, before the goal.
They did. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it was unbelievable pass from David Fitzgerald to Shane Moore, and a well taken goal. And I think that was enough to put enough daylight between the two of them. But yeah, look, I think Clare got to put a few players in that probably maybe fringe players, like Shane Meehan, get good game time into him. Everyone talks about they're missing Tony Kelly, they're missing Ryan Taylor. Clare aren't far away. They're not far away from, and a lot of people would perceive Clare to be the team that could take down Limerick. They've shown over the last 2 or 3 seasons how close they are. Maybe lacked in a bit of squad depth. But looking at the team they had on Sunday, they are developing. There's a lot of young players coming too. I think Mark Rogers this year, I think he's so far really taken a huge step up. You've Aidan McCarthy there as well to come in. Like they have a platter of forwards they can pick from. I suppose the main concerns I would have would be at the back for Clare. But I think if they can tighten up on the defence, I can't see them being far away this year.
No, I totally agree with you, Kieran, because I was really impressed by Dave McNerney in that half-back line. I mean, he was being given his opportunity. I mean, John Conlon has been the resident half-back for the last 2-3 seasons. But I thought the Tulla man really did impress there, particularly in his distribution. But I suppose going back to Cork here, Kieran, like 20 minutes in the second half with only 1 point. I mean, as I said, we talked about this with Kieran Kingston, the Pat Ryan era now. I mean, for Pat Ryan, this is an equation that has to be solved fairly quickly. I mean, like 20 minutes with 1 point is not going to get it done, and particularly in Munster Senior Hurling Championship in April.
Exactly, Mark, yeah. And I think it was a trend that they had went through last year as well, where they switched off in parts of games, and they did come with fight backs, but a little too late. And I think Pat Ryan has big decisions to make. Does Patrick Horgan need to be hurling in February? Don't think he does. You don't think he does. Like, you look at TJ Reid or any players of similar vintage. Like, there's no. They all know what Patrick Horgan can do. I don't think he needs to play. Like, they have such an array of talent and young guys coming up that give this opportunity to them to come in and put their stamp in the game. Like, I think they're putting in lads like Connolly, Han, Kingston. Okay, they've been good servants to Cork Hurling, but they've never done anything for Cork Hurling. They've never, national title. They've won no national titles in that time. There seems to be a reliance on these players. Like, should Pat Ryan just cut the cord and go young and say, look, this might take a year or two more, but we reckon we're going to get it this way. And I think another thing for Cork is maybe they have too much of a choice. Like, especially in the forward, there's so many players that they can play. Robbie Flynn, Shane Barrett, Alan Connolly, Ben Cunningham, all these young guys. And, I think that the main issue still is there. The two main issues is a ball winner inside. They have heavily relied on Jamie Hardy the last couple of years. Decky Dalton is injured. I don't know, the word doesn't seem too good on him. So, like, who plays that ball winner inside? And I think the other issue is full back. They have yet to stick with a full back, and I think that needs to be done. They just need to be able to have their six. They possibly have their their midfield with Darragh Fitzgibbon and a choice maybe is it Tommy Roach in there as well. I think they maybe have too much choice, and I suppose not. Look, it's early signs. It's only one game, but like that game against Clare, it was just the Cork of last year, really.
It seemed like a carbon copy of the championship, really, wasn't it? The way that Cork faded out, particularly in that third quarter. I almost think with Cork, when they go to 7-8 points down, the players kind of release. It's almost literally not under pressure, and they start playing their game, which is too little, too late. I think I'm not sure what some of these Cork players might be, just the occasion or the magnitude of the jersey, that at times it can overawe them, I think, to be fair. So, look, they have a key game coming up this weekend down in Super Value Park Kiev against Kilkenny. I mean, if they go 0 for 2 here, then, Kieran, I think your discussion point in terms of, where do you focus then on the league? We talked at length last week in terms of the whole league restructuring. Does Pat Ryan then stick, or does he give the youth a chance? I think it's going to be an intriguing watch here, Kieran, certainly. But going back to Clare, I mean, the squad depth ferociously good. I think the likes of Mark Rogers now has to be the key leader here, hasn't he? I mean, you do have Shane O'Donnell, you have Tony Kelly, but I think Brian Lohan, if he's going to learn anything from the league, is that he has more leaders in this front line that can really deliver, particularly in Munster Senior Hurling Championship.
Yeah, and I think it was good for Clare as well to get to look at even players who were in there on that panel, like David Reedy, Robin Mounsey, who've been there a couple of years. I think I thought David Reedy was very good again. I think Robin Mounsey is his third year in. He's really, really impressive. I think for Clare to build up that, the likes, not to be reliant on the likes of Tony Kelly. Look, he's probably the best Clare hurler ever, and you're going to be reliant. But I'm wondering, is there a factor that, because Kelly isn't playing, that these players are, instead of giving the ball to Kelly when he's in front of goal, that they'll take it on themselves and, probably maybe play with a little bit more freedom. And I think, Mark Rogers has been really impressive. We talked about him, 2 years ago. His stint with UL before he got injured, and that kind of ended his year. But he's been really progressing really well. And I think with Ed McCarthy as well, they've, plenty of free taking options too, which is something they've struggled with over the years. Like Tony Kelly is a wonderful player, but maybe not the most natural free taker, and he has missed some crucial ones. So, look, they are building a good panel of players, and I suppose young guys as well. I think Roy highlighted last week Kevin Smith coming in. This is what the league is for, I suppose. Really, this is what to put these players into positions where see how they react, and I suppose what Lohan is looking for is come championship that he knows what players he can rely on and what players he can throw in. I suppose there is question marks over will Tony Kelly be back. The word is that he might miss the first game against Limerick. Brian Taylor will do very well to get back for the early rounds of the championship. So, he is going to need that extra bit of cover, not just to fill the 15 jerseys, but I suppose you have two more guys to come in the bench as well. So, I think it's, you compare this to Clare's league last year. Okay, I know we're only one game in, but Clare last year were, really disregarded the league. They went to just, it was running through the motions really. But like this year, they're probably so far a live contender that might be thereabouts at the end of it. And maybe we do no harm, to win the league. But in the group they're in, I suppose Rory highlights this. It's really important to get your wins early, and maybe we'll see a different attitude if they have enough points built up. But they have been impressive. And I suppose a good game the weekend coming against Waterford in Walsh Park to see, how they react outside the Cusack Park.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with you, Kieran. I think for this Clare management and playing staff, National Hurling League would be no harm on the resume and build the confidence up for the championship, because we've seen in crunch moments last season, particularly Munster Hurling final, All-Ireland semi-final, there has been tactical screw-ups, but also players maybe not performing at the level on a higher level occasion. So I think for Clare, I think the focus should be pretty clear here. If they can get a result down in Walsh Park, I think all bets are off in terms of the league. I suppose we can get to Waterford here, Kieran. I mean, Waterford must have been hearing the podcast last week. I was tipping maybe Offaly to give maybe Waterford a good going over. But maybe early stages, Offaly went 4 points up. But my God, Kieran, 3 quick goals by Waterford really killed this game off at half time. And I mean, it was fairly routine stuff second half.
Yeah, it was. I think, Waterford played into the win in the first half and went short on the puck. I think the surprising thing was that Offaly stood off them, and invited them onto them, and they were stood off them as far back as between the 45 and the 65. Waterford went short every time, and there was one occasion in the first half where wing back took a ball from a short puck out, made a run towards halfway and put it over the bar. And that shouldn't happen. Look, Offaly are coming from a lower division. I suppose it's going to be there's going to be a bedding in period. It's a huge rise in intensity. I suppose everything a huge rise in skill. Tackling rates. It's probably going to be a culture shock for a while. I think Offaly probably were a little bit naive defending. Especially for the goals. Stephen Bennett fluffed to pick up for a free. There was no one there to stop, to stop what happened after it. And then I suppose look, you can see it over the years. Keeper Fluster takes a quick sharp puck out, and it's a bad puck out to the full back, and Bennett pounced again. 2 goals in 30 seconds. It's a real blow. I think another one is Owen Cahill went off as well first half. Injured. Not sure what the word is on that. But I think, from a Waterford point of view, I thought, the scoreline in the end probably flattered them. Take the 2 goals out of it, which could have been avoided. And, Waterford kicked on late with a couple of late points to put a glass in that scoreboard. I think had Offaly, ended that game maybe if it was the 120-17, they'd be fairly happy with that against, I suppose, a top-tier team. I don't think Waterford didn't look like a team that were setting the world alight either. The pitch looked heavy. It wasn't the best contest. Waterford were sloppy in aspects of their own play. I think one thing that Offaly struggled with Waterford's play was when they ran direct at them at pace. And I suppose that's why the first goal came from. But that last 5-10 minutes, Stephen Bennett tacked on a couple of late frees to make that score. I suppose if you hadn't seen the game, you would think, Waterford were well in control, but I think it wasn't that way. As Offaly had a good start. The younger guys, the younger brigade, like Screeney and Ravenhill, didn't feature. It's probably going to be a long couple of weeks for Offaly. I suppose it's where they want to be, and I suppose it's interesting to see. Come this weekend or the next 2 weekends, will the younger guys be given a chance? They're probably, even looking back at last year, they probably were reliant on the likes of Cahill, and if he is missing this weekend or into the next few weeks, how they'll go without him.
Yeah, no, Owen Cahill was a significant, prominent scorer for Offaly in league and also championship last year, so was going to be a loss, and unfortunately they went down to 14 players led. I mian, it's a wild pull. Look, it's mistimed. I don't think there's any malicious intent here. I think it was just the pace of it from the player concerned. But I think of Offaly, I think for Joe McDonagh Cup preparation, they're seeing the elite here, and hopefully they will learn from it. But I mean, next game out will be against Wexford down in Chadwick's Park, so we can preview that in due course. I suppose, Kieran, we won't dwell on too much, but 1B, I mean, there was an awful lot of drubbings here, to be perfectly honest. I mean, it's not a good look for the Allianz League here to have scorelines: Galway 4-20 or 31, Westmeath 12 points. I mean, Limerick with, an awful lot of fringe squad players again. I think the full forward line probably stole the highlight there. 122 in total in a 136-19 result over Antrim in FBD Semple Stadium. And then the Saturday game is probably the marquee result here. Tipperary going to Parnell Park and giving Dublin a 227-22 point loss. I mean, probably focusing on Tipperary Dublin game here, Kieran. More positive signs from a Tipperary perspective.
Yeah, I was really impressed with Tipperary. A couple of young guys out from me. I think Owen Connolly midfield. Sean Ryan, I've seen him for the last couple of weeks there in a couple of games. He's been really impressive. The Grode O'Connor, and we've seen him with UL and Fitzgibbon as well. Really good player, and I suppose he's going to be important. He's a ball winner, a big man. And for anyone that had, and myself included, an impression that Tipperary weren't going to be a feature team this year, I think we might be all wrong. I think they've emptied the well at this stage. I think they've gone down so deep that anyone that is playing hurling in Tipperary was looked at. I think in any senior, intermediate. But I suppose, okay, Dublin didn't provide a good opposition, I suppose, the weekend. But just they were really impressive in their play. Young players. Like Grode O'Connor with 12 points. Jake Morris has been around a few years. Probably is a little bit of an enigma. He'll score 1-4 in the league, but when it comes to championship, I suppose he's lacked a little bit of consistency over the last few years. Conor Bowe gone back to wing back. So far, looks a good move. He's I suppose he has the size and strength, and he's been getting up the field there, and he looks impressive there. And Brian O'Mara, I suppose, again, we how good Brian O'Mara is, but I think you add in John McGrath, Noel McGrath, Jason Ford into that mix. I don't think Tipperary are going to be too half bad this year. It'll be interesting to see what way they approach. I suppose will there be learnings from last year? Tipperary were very impressive this time last year as well in the league, and they kind of petered out as the championship went on. So it'll be interesting to see how they approach the league, and I suppose especially towards the end of the league and into the early rounds of the championship. But I think Munster just gets harder to call every year, and you could say we'll write off Tip, but I think right off Tip with Hurl, they're, I suppose, there's a natural hurling county and unbelievable stickmen there. They're going to be a tough battle, and I think for me, it's so hard to write them off. Still have a few very good players there from that older generation, that will be pivotal, like Noel McGrath, John McGrath. If he's playing to the form of the earlier games this year, Tip won't be far away.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Kieran. I mean, you throw in Ronan Mara at full back. You also have the likes of Barry Heffernan that could potentially be a fullback or a midfielder here as well. So, I mean, there's options coming here left, right and centre. And, I mean, the one thing that impressed me about Tipperary on Saturday was their turnovers, particularly in that middle third. I mean, I don't know what the stat was, but it seemed to be 2-1 here, Tipperary to Dublin. And you would think that Dublin, being so competitive and physical, would be in that camp. But I suppose, Kieran, looking at the Dublin side of things, is there a dilemma here for Micheál O'Donoghue in terms of the Donald Burke dependency factor in the attack? I know they tried to switch on O'Donnell here on the half-forward line. Don't think it necessarily worked, but I think you can see O'Donoghue's mindset here. He's trying to get a few guys here to really complement Donald Burke, and maybe this is going to be a work in progress this year.
Yeah, it's hard for one team to be so reliant, or to say that a team is so reliant on one player, but they are, up front they are. Donald Burke is that Dublin forward line, and I think without him, it's a completely different team. I said Owen O'Donnell has been trying to move forward. I think he's just so good in that fullback role. I just think he will be back there come championship. He's really steady player. Look, Tipperary were the better team. They had 13 different scores, but Dublin were without Owen O'Donnell, Sutcliffe, Keane Boland, Donald Burke, Chris O'Leary. So I suppose that team is a young team, but as you said, Dublin are a big physical side, and to see them being bullied by Tipperary players at the breakdown in rucks and turnovers, regardless what age you are and how experienced that Dublin team are, the work rate was to be there, and it wasn't. And I think, look, they did well. They got it back to 4 points at one stage in the second half, but I think they put the foot in the throat then after that and kicked on. I think it could be worrying times for Micheál O'Donoghue and early signs in the league so far. And I suppose that they'll need everyone to be back to full strength to have any chance, I suppose, of being one of the three in Leinster this year. I think that first championship game, Dublin Wexford, is huge. But I think, I don't know what the word is on Donald Burke. I know it's still the same injury as last year. He even missed the club final with the Fina. So I suppose it was hard to pick out a good Dublin performance weekend there. I think maybe Keane Sullivan was probably the marquee player in there, but I suppose it's worrying times really, because it's not going to get any easier.
No, certainly not, Kieran. But I think a great win for Tipperary sets them up very well. I mean, we won't dwell too much on the Galway Westmeath game. I suppose the key kind of lines coming out of the Galway camp really are the announcement of the captain, Conor Whelan, and Conor Cooney, obviously, being the vice captain. I mean, 431 to 12 points really tells the tale of the tape here for Galway, and a bigger test will lie ahead, primarily this weekend coming in FBD Simple Stadium against Tipperary. I suppose the Limerick game against Antrim. I mean, Antrim started well, Kieran, but I mean, once Limerick took control, good luck and thanks. I mean, as I said, O'Dowlig, Shane O'Brien, and also Adam English just ran riot in the full forward line, 122 in total. I mean, showing that the squad players here are really putting up the hand for more game minutes in the championship.
Absolutely, Mark. Yeah, I suppose it's for anyone outside of Limerick, it's a scary thought, that there's. But I think if you look at the three players, there are three players that are on players' lips that, that you'd like to see. You asked us a question last week, who we, most looking forward to seeing, and I think 90% of people would say Adam English and Shane O'Brien. The two names would be there. A lot of people have seen Adam English. I suppose he did get into the Limerick panel at the end of last year. I have question marks over him. Like games I've seen him where he's kind of in and out of games. goes missing for maybe 10 minutes and comes back into it. I think he needs to get out of his game, but Shane O'Brien, from what I've seen, look, he's just really, really impressive. Got a bit of bite about him as well, which I like, and I think he's one for the future. But look, you can play what's in front of you. I suppose, look, Antrim did have a good start. I suppose the Limerick had 9 unanswered points before half time, and Antrim had 7 wides in the same period. So that's the telling factor. That kicked it out going into half time, and then they outscored them 118 to a point into late first half into the second half. So they really kicked into gear. I think it's going to be a tough year for Antrim. I think there's lots of few players. Neil McMahon's gone. I think a couple of players have stood down, gone travelling. It's probably hitting that period where Gleeson is there. Is it his 5th year, 6th year? Or they're sick of the same old voice. I think it's going to be a big year for Antrim. I think it's probably going to be pretty inevitable that they will be in 1B next year. But I think that will suit the likes of Antrim and possibly Westmeath to be playing, I suppose, teams a grade above you, but also playing teams of similar, grades. So I think the league structure will be, it will suit them next year. It won't suit the grade 1 teams that end up getting dropped down to 1B. But I think the likes of Antrim, Westmeath, the Carlos and whoever comes up for our league this year, early signs, you'd probably say it will be Laois and Carlow, that it will suit them teams getting a bit of a test, but yet having competitive games as well. I suppose the big question I have is, you look at the likes of Carlow, who are in the Division 2A, preparing for Championship, and Westmeath, who are in Division 1, preparing for the same national championship, and how, I suppose the games Carlow are going to be playing, I'm not going to say easier opposition, but, Laois, Kildare, Meath, compared to what Westmeath are going to face, and it's just interesting to see how the two preparations will line up come Leinster Championship. Does playing the top teams and getting the beaten every week, is that better than playing maybe lesser teams and winning and get that winning mentality there? So, I think we'll see in weeks to come, but I think either way, coming to the championship, it will still be a tall task for the two teams.
Yeah, I completely agree, Kieran, because I think the case study with Laois last year, remember in the league, it was a fairly forlorn league, and we thought, Joe McDonough, they would turn it on, and they did struggle early doors and didn't get out of, even the group stages, which was a bit of a surprise to everyone. I suppose we can go to 2A here, Kieran. I suppose, what are the marquee headlines here? I suppose Carlow's win over Kerry down in Austin Stack Park for Lee, 322 to 19 points. Good statement of intent there, Kieran.
Absolutely. Jesus, I think Kerry have probably a very young team this year, but they were just out battled the whole game. It was 114 to 7 at half time. Marty Cavan and Chris Nolan on fire. They scored 2:15 between them. I've been really impressed with Carlow. I've seen them this year in the flesh a couple of weeks ago at the Walsh Cup, and they probably haven't the complete 15, but they play to their strengths. I think that half forward line is their strength. Marty Cavan, Chris Nolan, James Doyle in midfield, they're very good centre back. They don't bother with short puckouts. It's long ball onto their half forward line, and they're good enough to win that ball as well. They're all ball winners in there, and I think they're physical. They're well to mix it. They're good stick men, and I think they play to their strengths, and I think that's how they've got to where they were last year. But Marty Kavanagh is as good a hurler you'll see in any county. I suppose in Chris Nolan as well. But look, Kerry, it's hard to know. Are they keeping the powder dry for Joe McDonough this year? I'm sure they've been the bridesmaids so many times now. There's a lot of hurt down there, and I know they are a young team. The two Boyles have stepped away. And again, the weekend was without Shane Conway. Now it's hard to see one player making that much of a difference to looking at that scoreline. But I think for Carlow, they have impressed me this year and last year and how they won, and they're going to be a force to be reckoned with in the Division 2A. Yeah,
because look, they were dominant throughout Carlow. And Kerry, you could kind of maybe question, maybe it's a starting lineup. It's probably experimental in some positions, as you say here, Kieran, looking ahead into Joe McDonough. But I thought the ending for Carlow was fairly impressive. 2 late goals here. As I said, Marty Kavanagh was pretty much prominent here as well. So I think it's a fantastic win for Carlow. They were honing in on that fixture. there. Congratulations to them. Laois against Down here as well, Kieran. I mean, the scoreline, if you looked at it, 218 to 17 points would indicate it a comfortable enough win for Laois, but it was far from that given the reports I've heard here, Kieran.
Yeah, I think it was a couple of late scores that put a gloss on that scoreline. I think they struggled all in. I suppose it's the start. If you were to pick teams to be coming out of Division 2A, Laois would be one of the teams, probably along with Carlow. So surprised. Look, first game, I see a lot of teams are still in heavy training loads as well. So, you're not sure, you don't know what load was done this week. So I suppose there'll be bigger games looking at them teams to come in the next couple of weeks. And, I suppose we get a better test of where Laois are at. But, on that early game, you would be kind of worried as a Laois fan. And I think similar for Kildare because, we saw Kildare last year. They were, I suppose, the team of 2A in the group stage and losing out to Offaly. But newly promoted Meath to come up 220. Okay, they're under, Saoirse Bulfin. Obviously doing good things there. Like to do it in I'm sure hurling is a secondary sport in Meath. Like football will always be number one. But, really impressive getting the win there, 220 to 314. And I hope the shackles aren't coming off. Is that a reflection of Kildare and the year they're going to have? They're so impressive in that league last year, and I hope they can kick back from that result because I suppose if you look into that game for the weekend, you would have thought Kildare would have had a great chance to win this.
You would have thought so. I think early doors here, Kieran, they actually did impress, but credit Saoirse Bulfin and the Meath team here. They made adjustments and great fight back, and I mean, it's a great result to kick off their 2A campaign. I suppose, Kieran, before we leave the Allianz Hurling League, get a few predictions from you. I suppose 1A, we have Wexford versus Offaly, Cork versus Kilkenny is the televised game on Saturday night, and we've Waterford versus Clare. I suppose who are you tipping here for round 2 results here?
Yeah, I think both for Wexford now, like they're probably unbeaten in the competitions this year, Walsh Cup and the first round of the league. And I suppose the most important thing is to keep that going and keep momentum going. I think you'll see a couple of changes. I know Damien Reck is going to be suspended because the card last weekend, so you'll see a different centre back. I'm not sure how many more changes you'll see. It'll be a big game. It's a Saturday night under lights, and they'll I expect a big crowd in, and they won't want to let them down. I think Offaly, looking at them last week, they were struggling in some aspects of the game, but were impressive in others. Will Cahill be out? He did go off. I think you'd have to say Wexford, and you'd be kind of saying Wexford with a comfortable win. I think I suppose just to keep momentum going, and I do expect a few changes in the team. I do expect Wexford in that one. Cork Kilkenny, I've been pushing this around my head there the last few days, and it's a home game for Cork, and it probably is not a must win for Cork, but like if they do lose 0 from 2, the pressure of trying to get results in the last couple of games, with teams to come, like they're going to have to play Waterford, Wexford. I think it's a game, at home and a Saturday night in Cork. They're going to get a big local crowd, but what better team to put you down when you have question marks over yourself than Kilkenny, who will have their own ill feelings after their, all the good results in the draw, but they would feel they should have won that game last Sunday. I'm just going to tip it to Cork because of the home advantage. Cork need a huge result here. Cork need a huge performance more so than a result. Really can't wait to see the team sheet, to see who plays, who starts. I think it'll give an indication of what way they're going to go this year. Will Horgan play? Lahan, Kingston, will they give the younger guys a chance? I think they should. But I'm just going to give it to Cork just based on home advantage. But would not be surprised if Kilkenny were to come here strong and, to get a win. Waterford Clare, another game which is hard to call, but the grudge between Davy and Lohan continues. I think Waterford need to make Walsh Park a fortress. They played last year with no home venue. Can they use that as an excuse? Maybe so, but they have it now. They need to make it a fortress, and what better than doing that by getting a win in your first game there. I think it's going to be a really hard game to call. I think Clare, if they play the same style or same type of team as they did the last day, they'd be really hard to beat. Actually, I'm going to go if Clare go down to Waterford with a similar team to Cork, I'm going to tip Clare.
Fair enough. 1B, I suppose we were talking about Antrim and Dublin. They're facing each other in Antrim on Sunday. We've Tip versus Galway in Thurles, and on Saturday in Mullingar, Westmeath entertain Limerick. I suppose, do we want to get the Westmeath versus Limerick game out of the way first?
Yeah, I think it'd be another opportunity for John Kiley to, throw the young lads in. Like, no disrespect to Westmeath. They were under strength as well against Galway last week. Killian Doyle wasn't playing, Tommy Doyle. So, I suppose Joe Fortune is, I suppose he expects the inevitable, and he is putting a few younger guys in to try and build his own squad. So yeah, I'd have to say Limerick there. Tip and Galway, it's very similar to Cork and Kilkenny. It's going to be hard to call. Like, if I hadn't seen Tip last weekend, I probably would be saying Galway, no problem. But Tip were really impressive last week. I suppose how will they deal with a physical, Galway? I think pressure's on Galway this year. I think Silverware, has to come in some form for Henry Shefflin. They've built a rivalry over the last couple of years. They've had some big games, and I'm probably just going to give it to Galway. I think because they're a couple of more years down the road than Tipperary are. Tipperary, like a young team, but I think it'll be a good battle and it'll be a good game. And the last game, Antrim Dublin, I think it's going to be hard to call. Dublin have struggled to get results. Like, they were lucky last year to get out of Antrim with the results. Dublin last week they did not look good. Is Gleeson thinking this is my chance to get a result in the league, and I think this is going to be his best chance to get a result. I'm going to say a draw, Antrim Dublin.
Yeah, I'm going with you, Kieran, on that Antrim Dublin game. I just think there's question marks on both sides. That Dublin scoring power, there's big, massive question marks there. I think it's a great opportunity for Antrim. Tip Galway, I think there's big pressure here for Galway to really deliver in the league. This is the vibe I'm getting in Galway here, particularly with Henry Shefflin, particularly Eamon O'Shea and the background staff. A bit like Clare, I think they need an extended league run here to really kind of enhance their championship credentials. Tipperary at home, like, one way or the other, whoever wins this one, Tip and Galway are going straight through to the latter stages of the league here. So I'm just going to go home vantage here with Tip. I think there's a bit of momentum about them this year, just purely on the Dylan Quirk Foundation charity game. The performance against Dublin, the work rate, the hunger was there. I'm just going to edge a Tip, and I'm just thinking in terms of revenge after that Ireland quarter final. There'll be a few personnel there eager to maybe get one over the maroon and white. And then obviously Limerick and Westmeath. I'm just hoping from Westmeath perspective that it's a performance here, that they do keep in this, really put a test here for Limerick. And it did to a certain extent last season when the two teams met. So hopefully it's a good performance for Joe Fortune and the backroom staff and players to build on for us season, but can't see no more than a Limerick result. Wexford Offaly, I think I will go Wexford. I'd like to see Offaly maybe blood in one or two young lads like Adams Greeny, Ravenhill, just to give them a sample, because ultimately, this is where they need to be. Cork Kilkenny, maybe a draw on that one, and then Waterford Clare. I'm just going to go Waterford. I think there's pressure on Waterford here. I think there's been an awful lot of talking in that Waterford camp during the off-season. They need to back it up here. And I'm just thinking in terms of the Desi Hutchinsons, folks like that will be lining out here, might give them the edge. I suppose, Kieran, I know we're kind of running over here. Just in terms of the schools, there's been marquee provincial finals. I suppose, first off, hats off to Nina CBS. I thought it was an absolute classic Carty Cup final last Saturday in Cusack Park, Ennis. I just thought the resiliency, determination of Nina CBS to keep going when it looked at times Ardscoil Reach would pull away. I thought it was very admirable, and I thought they got their just desserts right at the end.
Yeah, huge congratulations to them. Their first ever Harty title. I think they've been in 5 finals and never won one, so so the pressure was on in that regard. I suppose the 3rd year in a row there's been a maiden winner in the competition, so it's good for the schools outside of the main, the likes of Ardscoil and that. 63rd minute goal, Andy Hoolan. Huge excitement at the end there. Like, they were really had the pressure on, and I suppose at times you thought Ardscoil had the damage cleared, and they were, I suppose, heartbreak for him really. Like, there was supporters ready to line the pitch, and that sport. It was a really good game, level game at half time. But I think, Artscoil, looking back at the year, they have been probably a little bit fortunate in games gone by where they dug it out, and I think they just got it. They got away with it in a couple of days, and they just didn't get away with it this time. And hats off to St. Joseph, Nina, because I suppose the story with like 9 different clubs represented, and for that part of Tipperary for hurling, it'll do all them the world of good. We saw the story with Tulla a couple of years ago, and parts of East Clare, I suppose hurlers never came from, and now they are. So really good competition, and it's a really good advertisement for I suppose for young lads, and to get to see it on like live on Clubber as well for people who wouldn't get a chance to see these games. Like, I think it's very good that anyone can pay a couple of euro and get to watch it.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Kieran. I thought fairness to Arts Reach, I think they really contributed to a great game. They created some lovely space inside, I thought, particularly for Fitzgibbon O'Brien to score. But I think 2 Nina guys need to be called out here. I mean, Darren McCarthy, I think, for me, is going to be a sensational player, but also Kieran Foley from Bursa Kane, the midfielder. Artscoil didn't know how to solve that problem because Foley's work rate, but also his point taking as well. The 51st minute point, I thought, was a real kind of turning point. Even though Artscoil then went ahead, that was kind of an emphatic response from Foley and Nina, and it really did culminate with never say die attitude at the end, culminating. Fiona O'Brien, great save from Artscoil Reach, and you thought maybe that was the end of it, but for Holohan, Moneygall wing back to be up there, it was real kind of Jimmy Glass, Carlisle United stuff really to get the goal. But I mean, look, fortune favours the brave, and fair play to Nina. I think it's a magnificent story for Harty Cup again, for the local communities around Nina, North Tipperary. I always find with Tipperary Intercounty, if the North Tipperary hurling scene is strong, chances are their underage and senior are flying. And I think this is a kind of emphatic statement of the work that's going on underage within the North Tipperary board here.
And I think as well, Thurles, like we know, there was an Angers and point for him, difference in the semi-final, so it could have been an all-tip final, very close, another time. So look, I suppose people think Tipperary hurling's disarray, but there is coming. They had that minor win only 2 years ago. You look at the likes of these young lads. Darren McCarthy did stand out to me as well. It's a good story for the Harty Cup, as I said. Have the 3rd different winner in 3 years.
Absolutely, and just so tight, the fine margins. But look, Artscoil Reach still look to bounce back in a quarter final where they're going to be meeting the Presentation Athenry. I cursed Presentation Athenry. You can blame me all you want here from Athenry because I tipped you for this Connacht final. But in fairness to St. Raphael's, their first final win in 4 years, and look, it was a stormy day in Duggan Park, Ballinasloe, but I think this is a game of chances. I think Oscar O'Gorman, particularly from St. Raphael's, really did stand out. Had an awful lot of good scoring opportunities converted. Presentation Athenry spurned 4 goal chances, 3 in that opening half. And Iron Island was the prominent scorer here. I think he scored everything bar 3 points here for Presentation Athenry. I think St. Raphael's were worthy winners on the day here, Kieran. And I think it's a good story here for Connacht hurling as well, that St. Raphael's kind of turned the tide here because Presentation going for 4 in a row, obviously. So look to go into semi-final, but Presentation are going to be facing Artscoil Reach in a mouth-watering quarter-final next week here. I think that'll be one to watch here, Kieran.
Yeah, I think we've seen it the last couple of years, like the Kieran's losing Leinster titles and going on at the end to win the Crow Cup. Artscoil, they may have lost, I suppose, the manner they lost as well. There's going to be a kickback at them, so it'll make it a mouth-warrant tight or a game all right to come in the next few weeks.
Absolutely. I know last week we had hyped up St. Kieran's Kilkenny CBS Leinster final for good reason. The group game, there's only a point separating them, but Kieran, only one team in this yesterday, and it was St. Kieran's, and it was an emphatic 221 to 5 point win over their arch rivals Kilkenny CBS. Yeah,
it was their first title since 2019. There was no doubt about it from the very start. I suppose the 2 goals, some questionable defending maybe by CBS, especially the wing back for McAvoy's goal. But they were complete control. CBS only scored 2 points in play. And Kieran's will straight through to that semi-final, and CBS will be a task for any team in the quarters, but they're a strong Kieran's team, and McAvoy with 1-9 on the day, 7 from frees, really impressive tally, and they'll hold their bragging rights for a while around Kilkenny anyway, that's for sure.
Yeah, I just felt that Kilkenny CBS from minute one, certain players, and this can happen to players under 19, the occasion, the game just gets away from them. And I mean, after 10 minutes, St. Kieran stormed into a 1-5 to no score lead. The Aaron McAvoy goal, I think everyone's seen it on social media in terms of the 40-metre run to it, 3 points at half time, and then they stretched the lead. I suppose the only negative here for St. Kieran's was Ed McDermott. He had a great game. He went off injured late. So maybe that's a kind of a worry for St. Kieran's. But as you say, Kilkenny CBS, unfortunately weren't there. 2 points from play is not going to win you kind of a provincial or final, but they'll have a chance to dust themselves down in a few weeks. Look, it's all leading up to nicely into the whole All-Ireland series here, and we'll be following it on the podcast with interest. I suppose, Kieran, before we go here, Fitzgibbon Cup quarterfinals, I suppose, what did stand out for you? I mean, we had results here. Southeast Technical University Waterford 119 to Southeastern Technology University Carlow 113. Mary I having a 125 to 117 win over TUS Midwest. University of Limerick were posed their first serious question of the Fitzgibbon Cup against UCC for 40 minutes, but they emerged 121 to 16 point winners over UCC. And then finally, we actually had University Galway having a big win over MTU Cork, 424 to 114. A Galway side loaded with Galway intercounty talent. I suppose, what stood out for you here, Kieran?
I think the game I was looking forward to was UCC versus UL. I suppose UCC probably they weren't impressive in the early game. I suppose they got a good result against Maynooth last week, and they really had UL on the rack for a while. They were up by 2 points, midway in the second half, but I think UL has finished like a train, and I think Gora O'Connor were central to that. I think they scored, I didn't know offhand, but maybe 7 or 8 of the last 10 points in the last to see it out. I suppose we know how strong they are up front, especially. Mary I again coming through, and I think the pairings you said was UL are playing Galway, University of Galway.
Would be, yeah, and then
Mary I,
Waterford playing Mary I.
Yeah, they're going to be 2 great semi-finals. I think they're down for Wednesday night and the final on Saturday. So just 2 great games upcoming there. I think Mary I have been really impressive. I think that they probably wouldn't have been a college that would have been named maybe at the start of the tournament, but you just look at the forward line they have, and it tells you why they are as far as they are. And the same for Waterford, with Ruben Holleran and the 2 for Sturrock, Padraig and Patrick. They were fairly untouchable last night, and I think they were one of the teams who were touted at the start as well. So I think that definitely probably the 4 best teams are left in it. It's going to be two great semi-finals. It's going to hedge my bets, and no Limerick bias in this. I think UL will be in the final. I think they have been impressive. They racked up some big scores early on, but that test over Cork UCC last night would be a real, really stand to them going into it. And I'm going to put my head in the line and say Mary I. I think they have a really good forward line. Adam Hogan in defence as well. An All Limerick final would be a good occasion. I think it's down to be on Tralee Saturday week, but not taken away from Waterford. They probably will be very strong, and probably will be a close. I think both games will be close games, but I'm going to go. Let's say UL and Mary I for the final.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, you have to call out Patrick and Padraig Fitzgerald for Waterford against Carlow. Look, local derby game there. 2 guys delivered 110 total between the 2 of them. And I think also Tom Barron as well, really kind of nullifying Owen Cody. I know Cody scored a goal from open play, but I thought Tom Barron had a great game. Mary I, look, 9 of the opening 11 scores coming from Mary I on the day. And I mean, I think the likes of Jason Gallan here, you've Devin Ryan, you've Shane O'Brien, there's a massive scoring threat here. I know Rory had highlighted it to us there last week here, Kieran. I did like the way how UL adjusted in the last kind of 30 minutes or 20 minutes of this UCC game, because UCC stifled the middle third for the first 40 minutes, but how they created the space inside for Adam English, who scored 4 points, and Mark Rogers 1-1, I thought was key. I thought from, was it the 40th to the 59th minute, from being 15 points to 12 down, they went 121 to 15 points up. I mean, it's just a scoring power that University of Limerick have. And I just wonder with University of Galway here, just in terms of, look, the game itself here was over as a contest in the third quarter. But Gavin Lee, I would say Horgan, Niall Collins as well. But this is going to be a step up against University of Limerick, really. To be honest, I think I would go UL. And I'm going to head my bets on Waterford. I think Waterford have a little bit of unfinished business here, particularly in the semi-final. They may have felt that was a Fitzgibbon Cup that went away. The final was down in Waterford last year. But I mean, that's going to be two exceptionally sensational, cracking matches on Wednesday night. If anyone can watch it on YouTube or Clubber, then by all means do, because I think those two games might go down to the wire in extra time here.
Yeah,
might even go penalties here, Kieran. I don't see much between these four teams. But yeah, no, it's going to be an exceptional end to the Fitzgibbon Cup. And I suppose next week, Kieran, we can run the rule over the Allianz Hurling League. I mean, obviously they'll have a break after this weekend. We can run the rule over 1A, 1B and 2A. Who's impressing, who may be getting a little bit worried. And also looking into the Fitzgibbon Cup as well, because these semi-finals will be on next week. I suppose, Kieran, until next week, have a great weekend, and we'll chat next week.
Same to you, Mark. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this podcast episode. If you liked what you heard in this podcast, why not subscribe to the Hawkeye Sidekick podcast on either Amazon, Spotify, YouTube or Twitter platforms. You can also follow me at Hawkeye Sidekick on Facebook and Twitter for the latest sporting opinions, articles and reports.